Testing, testing. Okay. Welcome to the Podcast Marketing Magic live training webinar. This is your host, Seth Green. And if you are looking to learn how to get impossible to reach decision makers to seek you out, if you're looking to know how to write a book without writing a book, and how to get customers from iTunes for as little as $15 a month, and if you would like to get an avalanche of qualified referrals into your business, you have come to the right place. We will get started in about 10 minutes. Welcome to the Podcast Marketing Magic live training webinar. This is your host, Seth Green. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a few more minutes. Stay tuned. You're in the right place. Welcome to Podcast Marketing Magic. You are in the right place. This is your host, Seth Green. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. All right, this is Seth Green. We are going to go ahead and get started with our Podcast Marketing Magic live training webinar. So if you are here, you are about to discover how to get impossible to reach decision makers to seek you out. I'm going to show you actual case studies of clients doing that. I'm going to show you how to write a book without having to actually write a book. I'm going to show you how to get customers from iTunes for as little as $15 a month. And I'm going to show you how to get an avalanche of referrals into your business. So let's get started. Have you ever wondered how some businesses seem to catch all the breaks? So, for example, I noticed this a number of years ago. So, if you are, for example, if you're on any of the big internet marketers list, like for example, let's say you're on Jeff Walker's list and he's launching product launch formula 7.0 or whatever version he's on. Sorry, Jeff. So if that's the case, when he's promoting his new product, you don't just get an email from Jeff, do you? You get an email from a whole bunch of people. So you'll get an email from Rich Sheffrin saying, hey, don't buy product launch formula here. Buy it through my link and I'll give you this X, Y, and Z bonus. And then you get an email saying, hey, no, this is Ryan Deiss. Don't buy from Rich, buy from me because I've got the best bonus, right? And I used to wonder, how do they do that? Is there some type of conspiracy? Is there some type of club, some type of mastermind group where all the top internet marketers get together and say, hey, we're going to launch Jeff this month. Rich will promote you next month. Frank Kern, we're going to promote you in October. And they pick who they're going to promote, and that person makes a ton of money and pays out lots of affiliate commissions. And I said, man, I wish there's got to be a room somewhere where they're plotting. I wish I could get in. Well, I'm going to show you how to build your own room full of people promoting your business without having to ask them, beg them, or pay them. I know it sounds too good to be true, but you are about to discover how I did this in my business, how I have done it for dozens and dozens of our clients in every industry you can imagine, and how you can do it too. So I promise, if you stick with me here throughout today's session, there is no pitch, by the way. I have no 27 stack slides of bonuses to give you. I am not selling anything on today's webinar. All right, that's not true. I am. I'm going to sell you on the idea that you should do a podcast. That is my goal. That is about it. The rest is all content. Okay? So you can stay till the very end. There's no sneak. There's no giant offer at the end that you want to drop off and miss. All right. So in case you don't know who I am Seth Green. I am the author of Podcast Marketing Magic, where the world's top podcasters share their secrets. You will see more of my background as we go through this. But why podcasting? Well, first of all, let me back up a little second here. I don't want to assume that everyone knows what a podcast is. So a podcast is essentially like a radio show on your phone. So instead of spending, I have some colleagues who have a radio show in my city, and they've been doing it for about 10 years. And it's a financial advice radio show, and it's an hour and a half long on Sundays, I think, and they spend $50,000 to $60,000 a year on that radio show. It's a crazy amount of money. What if you could have the same radio show for $15 instead of $50,000? Would that be worth it? Would you jump at that? Of course you would. So the problem with the traditional radio show is a whole lot of people of your target market aren't listening. A whole lot of people who are listening aren't your target market, and it's really expensive, and it's spray and pray mass media. What if you could only target the people who you wanted, and you didn't really have to pay for airtime? That's a podcast. So I have, my podcast has been as high as number 3 on iTunes. It is called Direct Response Marketing. It is free. I would strongly urge you to subscribe to it and listen to our episodes. We have some fantastic thought leaders on the show like Dan Kennedy, Roland Frazier, Perry Marshall, Russell Brunson, folks you've probably heard of. So please listen to the show. We deliver all kinds of great value on the show. Why is now the time that you want a podcast? Well, what I'm showing you right now is something called AirPlay. And in the next generation of cars that you buy, Apple has a deal with every major car manufacturer that this is what your screen is going to look like. Your interface, that little purple icon, the podcast interface from Apple is going to become pre-bundled in every car, and you won't be able to delete it even if you want to. So instead of having an iPhone, in addition to your iPhone and your iPad, you will now have an iCar. As of right now, this recording, there are 1 billion people listening to podcasts. When this hits in the next 5 years, that number is expected to triple, and there will be 3 billion people listening to podcasts. And you can show up in front of them for virtually nothing. Whereas if you wanted to show up in front of their car radio, you'd have to spend a fortune. So now is the perfect time to get in on the ground floor and watch this thing take off and take your business with it. That's why the time is right now. So before we get into how you're going to do this, let's talk about who I am for just a second and tell you why you should listen to me. So I have written 6 books: Financial Advisor Marketing Magic, Real Estate Marketing Magic, Cutting Edge Marketing Magic, Online Marketing Magic, Seeing a Magic Theme, The Facebook Ninja, and Podcast Marketing Magic. I have been nominated. I'm the only person in history to be nominated for the Dan Kennedy Marketer of the Year Award back to back 3 years in a row. And in addition to writing 6 books, I've been written about in 3 books. I've been written about in the GKIC No BS Marketing Letter. I've been written about in Dan Kennedy's Info Marketing Letter. And I've been featured on real media like the Wall Street Journal, CBS, CNN, NBC, you name it. But I didn't always start out that way. So I originally went to Syracuse University for my undergraduate education. And my goal was I was majoring in acting. I was going to become a Broadway star. That was my life plan when I was 18. It didn't quite work out that way. And I'll tell you why. So my senior year, 2 of my friends and I decided to produce our own show, not just do what the school drama department put on, but produce our own show. The Mystery of Edwin Drood by Charles Dickens, an interactive murder mystery musical where the audience picks the ending. So we formed a student organization. We did a budget and a proposal. We went to student government and said, we need money for this show. They said, okay, give us the money. And I was a producer. 6 weeks before opening night, I got a phone call that said, this is the SGA. We need to talk. Can you come see us? The we need to talk line is never good. It's not good if your wife tells you need to talk, or your girlfriend, or your spouse, or your boss. So I was a little concerned going in as to what I was walking into. So we walk into the SGA meeting and they say, we made a mistake. According to our bylaws, you are a first-time student organization. We're not allowed to give you that much money. We have budgetary restrictions in terms of how much money we can give a first-year student organization. We need half of your money back. And I said, as my stomach, heart hit the floor, you can't have it back. We're 6 weeks away from opening night. I've got sets built and costumes and we're in production. You can't have it back. And they said, well, we're freezing the funds in your bank account. We're taking half of it back. You don't have a choice. So I had a decision to make. And that decision was, I couldn't produce the show on half the budget. So it was close the show, admit defeat, and apologize to the 60 of my friends who were in the show, involved in working on the show, or I could find some other way to make the money back. Well, if you've ever seen the movie Top Gun with Tom Cruise, there's a scene where the bald, cigar-chomping admiral says to him, son, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash. That's what I did. That's the decision I made. I said, hey guys, to my 2 friends, I got all these pre-approved credit card applications at my apartment. Why don't I just fill them out? We'll charge the money, and then we'll make it back on ticket sales. And whatever's left over, if there's anything left over at the end, you guys get credit cards and write me a cash advance check, and we'll split it 3 ways. And they said, that's a great idea. Go do it. So I did it. Unfortunately, back then, I knew nothing about direct response marketing. So we did not sell enough tickets. So I did not make back our money, a lot of it. And graduation comes around, and I said, hey, guys, you got to go get credit cards. You got to help me out. Like we agreed. They went to their parents and said, hey, mom and dad, can we go get a credit card and charge money for the musical that we owe Seth? And their parents said, no way, which is what my parents would have said had I asked them months ago, which is why I didn't, because I didn't want them to say no and talk me out of it. So I got screwed. I had all of their parents wouldn't let them do what they agreed to. So I had all of the debt on my credit card, which I had no way to pay back. So unfortunately, that resulted in me going Chapter 7 bankrupt because I couldn't pay it back. No matter, I tried for a year, but the money I was making my first year out of college wasn't even close enough to, I barely could feed myself, let alone touch the debt payment. And I decided to make a career change because I had borrowed a bunch of money to gamble on something that I knew nothing about. So I thought because of that background, I would make an excellent financial advisor. I know, not the most logical career choice, but I figured I could tell people how to avoid making financial mistakes because I just made a big one. So this was my life, boiler room, except I worked for a Fortune 500 company that had 6,700 financial advisors in it. And I started out as 6,699. I was one up from the bottom, making 300 cold calls a day, interrupting strangers, asking them for money. You probably hung up on me once or twice. I'm watching you, Reed. Maria, I know it was you. Just kidding. So I was very frustrated doing that until my spare time, I am a professional magician. I was reading a marketing course for magicians, and I was reading a marketing magazine, a magic trade journal. Sorry about that. I was reading a trade journal, and there was a full-page ad for a marketing course for magicians. Remember, I'm cold calling, so I didn't have the money to buy it. But I asked my parents to buy it as my birthday present, which they did. So I used other people's money again. I got them to do it, to buy me the course. I implemented the course, and I became the most expensive, busiest magician in Western New York, where I live, in 60 days. So I said, holy cow, this stuff works. I used my critique certificate, or my consultation certificate, with Dave D., the guy who sold me the course. And I said, Dave, would this work in my real job as a financial planner? And he said, yes, it would. I said, where did you learn it? He said, the 2 words that changed my life. He said, Dan Kennedy. So I went to Dan and I said, what do I do? What am I doing wrong? How do I fix this? And he said, write me a really big check and I'll change your life. Now, his pitch was a whole lot better than that. So I went home and I went to my wife and I said, honey, 12 months ago, we got married. 9 months ago, we bought our first house. 3 months ago, we had our first baby. And 2 weeks ago, you quit your job to be a stay-at-home mom, leaving me sole breadwinner for our family of 3 when I am cold calling for business. I need to go borrow a bunch of money to go hire this guy, Dan. And she said, no. And some other words that I won't repeat on air. So the next day I came home and said, honey, you don't understand. I got to go borrow this money and go hire this guy, Dan. And she said, you don't understand? I said, no, yesterday. That was a pattern for 30 days in a row until day 31 when she said, you better pray this works. Hired Dan. Dan increased my revenue, my production, my commissions, 435% in 2 years, which is unheard of in financial services. I went from 6,699th to the top 30 in the country in 2 years, competing against financial advisors who had been serving clients twice as long as I had even been alive. So I said, Dan, this is amazing. What do I do now? And he said, start a marketing company and do that, what you just did for other people. So I did. And that was the start of Market Domination LLC, the company I founded 8 years ago that started out as just me and one client and has since grown to serve thousands of clients around the world, everyone from individual solo entrepreneurs to Fortune 500 companies. Started out as just me, is now me and a building full of fantastic team members who do a great job serving our clients. So that's why we're talking about this today. Dan told me along the way, write a book, make yourself an expert. So I wrote 6. Now, we're here to talk about podcasting and how podcasting is your freedom. So let's dive right in. If you are facing some of these challenges, you don't necessarily know where your next client is going to come from. You don't know where the money's coming from this month. I've been there. I've had months where I didn't know if I was going to make payroll. I didn't know if I was going to make rent. I didn't know if I was going to pay my mortgage. I've been there. Podcasting can help you fix that. If you don't know where your next referral is coming from, if you're getting referrals, but they're sporadic, there's no rhyme or reason or method, they're just random, this can fix that. If you're good at what you do and you're better than your competition, but your competition has a bigger marketing budget or is better known than you, this can fix that, and I'll show you how. So I want you, if you're not taking notes, I want you to start, and I want you to write this down. If you take away one thing, iTunes sometimes gets called a social network, just like Facebook, just like LinkedIn, just like Twitter. iTunes is not a social network. iTunes is a media platform. It's a media platform. Once you have an account on a media platform, what does that make you? Makes you a reporter. And as a reporter, you have the ability to grant what everyone wants, which is exposure. Heck, you can even get press passes to concerts if you want. I'm not saying you should do that. I've had clients who have done that. I personally haven't tried yet. But iTunes is a media platform. Once you have one, you own it, and you are the reporter. So let me give you an example of how your podcast can get you in front of impossible to reach decision makers. This is Gary Okino, and this is the Outdoor Boardroom podcast. Now, Gary Okino is a golf coach. And before he found me, he was charging $75 a lesson, trading time for dollars. And I said, if you're going to trade time for dollars, let's get you trading a whole lot more dollars for a whole lot less time. He said, how am I going to do that? The first thing we did was we wrote him a book called Play Golf Like the Pros, and we did a bestseller campaign and got him to the number one golf book on Amazon. So now he had street cred of, I'm a number one bestselling Amazon golf author. Then we created a program called The Last Golf Lesson Ever. And you take notes on this because it's awesome. So I said, Gary, wave a magic wand, sky's the limit, no limits whatsoever. You can charge as much as you want. Who would be your ideal client? He said, oh, well, I'd love to work with like Fortune, people in my local market, sometimes give me a hard time about $75 for one lesson and a $225 for a package. So I'd love to work with someone, like a Fortune 500 CEO who plays golf. Those guys make millions. I said, done. He said, what do you mean done? How am I going to get to a Fortune 500 CEO? I said, you're going to start a podcast about life lessons and business lessons learned on the golf course called the Outdoor Boardroom. And we're going to market you to those CEOs, and we're going to reach out to their PR departments and say, we have a media appearance for Mr. Chambers. And they will say yes, because it's a media appearance. And the CEO wants to keep their profile, raise their profile. And then on the show, there are going to be 3 very strategic questions you're going to ask. What's your biggest challenge in your golf game? What golf course is on your bucket list? And if you could play that course with any living celebrity or athlete, who would it be? Then at the end of that interview, you're going to call the CEO back and say, hey, great job, great interview. Thank you so much. I noticed that you mentioned your slice was your biggest problem. Your dream course is St. Andrews, and you want to play with BJ Singh. Was that right? And the CEO goes, yeah. He's starting to get interested. And Gary says, would you be open to me sending you some information on how I could get you to St. Andrews with BJ Singh and fix your slice all at the same time? And he says, yes, I would love that. So Gary sends a marketing campaign out that we designed for him to that CEO who is eagerly waiting for it. It does not get screened by 7 receptionists. It goes right to him. And he opens it up. There is a video to him from Gary and an application for the last golf lesson ever for CEO's program that is literally 6 figures. He buys. Gary gets a private jet, flies to the CEO, picks him up, flies to BJ Singh, pays him his $25,000 appearance fee or whatever it is. They fly to St. Andrews. They play for a couple days. They fly back. Every month, if you watch Gary, he's someplace else that's tropical, someplace else that's fantastic, playing on some great course. Now he has a downsell. Not every CEO pays $100,000. Some of them pay a lot less. Some of them pay less. But he's getting flown around all over the place to play these amazing courses and get paid a whole lot more than $75 for a lesson. Your podcast could get you in front of anyone. You want more referrals for your business? This is Richard Binko. He is an estate planning attorney. He could get a lot of referrals from financial advisors. However, if he walks into a financial advisor's office who he does not know and says, hi, hand out my business card to your clients, he'll get thrown out, right? Nobody's going to trust him like that. But if we interview the financial advisor and say, we want to put you on our podcast, and oh, by the way, we're also going to publish the podcast as a book. That's the secret sauce that we're getting to. We're going to turn it into a book, and you can hand the book out to your clients and prospects and say, hey, look, I'm in this book for Estate Planning Experts Buffalo. Boom. Now, all of a sudden, that financial advisor is happy to tell his clients that he's on a podcast. Look at me. I was interviewed in the press, and he's says, Richard, can I buy 500 copies of the book and hand them out to my clients and prospect? And Richard says, sure, we'll sell them to you at cost. We don't even need to make any money on the book. But if you're going to hand out 500 copies of this book, that'll drive a ton of business my way because I wrote the book. That's part of your secret sauce. Is not only is that you want guests who can refer you, the guests who serve your clients, who can refer you a ton of ideal clients to your business. Do you see how that works? Do you see how that's totally different than ham-handedly asking for refer? Hey, who do you know who has $1 million who I can talk to? Totally different positioning. You're the expert because you wrote the book. And how you're going to write the book without writing the book is you're going to interview them on your podcast, and then you're going to transcribe the interview, and that's your book. So the bigger reason that I mentioned earlier, we now have 3 children. That is my lovely wife, Rebecca, on the left. Ella is the 6-year-old on the daughter on the left. Lily's the 3-year-old in the center, and Max is my 8-year-old son on the right. The bigger reason why I'm doing this is I believe I'm a big follower of Ayn Rand, and I am a big believer that entrepreneurs are going to be the ones who are going to save the world. So it's not going to be the government. It's not going to be whoever gets elected. It's going to be entrepreneurs. So I use Kiva, huge supporter of kiva.org. I do a lot of micro lending to entrepreneurs in third world countries to help them get out of poverty. And I take a portion of every dollar that we make and send it to them because they need it more than we do. And they're going to change. They're literally saving lives, $25 at a time. Okay, so now let's go through the steps to successful podcasting, how you can do this. You see where we're headed. Now I'm going to show you how to get there. So here we are. The first step is you need a podcast concept and a name. You need interview questions, and you need to book your first guest. Let me break that down for you. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is research for what your podcast concept and name should be. So you're going to go 2 places. You're going to search iTunes for the most successful podcast in your niche, and you could name yours, something similar, but, sort of piggyback on it, but just don't infringe on anybody's copyright. Number 2, you're going to go to Google Keyword Planner and see what's the number 1 keyword you want to rank for. So, for example, if I go search iTunes in podcasts for personal branding, the first one that comes up is called Life is a Marathon. Let's check out Life is a Marathon. So, here's something interesting. It's called Life is a Marathon, Life Coaching, Self-Esteem, Personal Development, Personal Branding, Positive Thinking. Why isn't it just Life is a Marathon? Why does he have all of these in there? Because they're keywords he wants to rank for. How come his name isn't just Bruce Van Horn? It's also life coach, motivational, blah, 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 blah. Because he wants to rank for those. And those are also in his description. And they're in the longer descriptions on every episode. So that he ranks for it. The other big ranking factor, is how many reviews he has and how many downloads he gets. So it's not going to be, you don't necessarily need 92 reviews because if you're in a local market, because you're not going to have much competition because there's not too many local businesses doing podcasts. I literally had a client get to the top of New and Noteworthy, which is your first 8 weeks in iTunes. And it was literally, I think he had 30 reviews. That was it. And that was enough in his market to rank. You can look and see at the reviews. A lot of these are 1 or 2 sentences. You don't need people writing paragraphs. It doesn't matter. As long as it's, you want 5 stars and a sentence or 2 about how fabulous your show is. If you go to Google Keyword Tool, here I go to personal branding. And then it will give me keyword groups and searches and competition. So, for example, personal branding, company branding gets 8,000 searches a month and has high competition and an average cost per click of $5. Personal branding examples gets a whole lot, gets 4,000 searches and $3. So again, you want to play around. Now you need an introduction. You need an introduction for your podcast because it's like a radio show. So radio shows have professionally produced introductions with like a voiceover and music. So you want that to be lead generation for your podcast. You know, here's why you should listen to the show. Here's what's going to happen on the show. Here's why you're an expert in the niche. And what is the next action you want them to take? Go to your website, go to a webinar like this one, get a free copy of the report, ebook, video series, because you want to make sure that even if they don't listen to the show, even if they don't listen to the whole thing, you had a call to action on there and drove them to get on your list. So this is mine. Welcome to the Direct Response Marketing Magic Podcast. Seth Green is a 5-time best-selling author. I got to update this. So there you see my street cred of who I am. My call to action is to get free access to his magical marketing video series that will show you how to attract new customers like magic, blah, 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 and then the lead gen for the podcast. On the podcast, Seth brings together some of the most cutting-edge thought leaders, so you get the idea. And this has professional voice-over talent voicing it and music behind it. If you subscribe to Direct Response Marketing, the podcast, you will see it. Next thing you want to do, a lot of people are worried about the podcasting technology. We've solved that problem. You don't need any. You don't need a fancy microphone or audio system or Mac or anything. You literally, all you need is a free app on your phone called Call Recorder that will allow you to record the interview, and I'll show you where you can get your intro dirt cheap. So if I go in the App Store and I type in Call Recorder, this is the one that comes up. That's Call Recorder free. That's what I want. The app is free. You pay for the recording minutes of airtime. So you might spend $15 a month on airtime. So you buy credits, and in this case, in this screenshot, I've got an hour left. You would hit the record button. It's very tricky. You hit the record button. It comes up and says recording started. You then say add a contact, pick the person, hit add call, and poof, you're recording the call. When you're done, you are then good to, when they're done and hang up, the app will say call recording now available. And you just hit the recording and say email, and you email it to yourself as an MP3 file, and that's your interview. The introduction you're going to get, you go to Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and type in voice podcast intro, and there are pages and pages of people who will do your intro for $5. That's usually just the voice part. If you want music, it's like $10 more, so you're going to pay $15. And it just depends on who you want to do your intro. So do you want a male voice? Do you want a female voice? Do you want older? Do you want younger? Do you want a British accent? Do you want a South African accent? Do you want Texas? Do you want no accent? So you just page through, listen to people, and say, that's the voice I want for my show, and you're good. Now, how do you get them together? How do you put the intro on the front of your show, the front of your interview, so you have an episode? All you got to do, okay. All you got to do is go get Audacity, which is a free audio editor, and literally it will let you cut and paste like a Word doc. Here's the MP3 file of my introduction. Here's the MP3 file of my interview. I hit, export as MP3. It merges the two together, and poof, I have an episode. That's it. And all I got to do is get it to iTunes. You're going to sign up for an account with a company called Lisbon. There are a number of places that will host your podcast and submit it to iTunes. We like Lisbon the best. I'm not an affiliate. I don't get paid if you sign up. So go sign up for a Lisbon account. Create your show. It has instructions on how you tell iTunes that your show is live. iTunes will repeat it. Will approve it, hopefully. They will then send you a link saying, here's the link to your show on iTunes, and you now have a show. And then you just upload every episode every week, and it will automatically show up on iTunes. And then to turn it into a book, you're just going to transcribe each episode, edit it, and turn it into a book. That's really all there is to it. So I'm hoping that you will be our next success. I'm hoping that I've inspired you, given you a little outside the box thinking about how you could use a podcast, like for example, podcast to get a lot of business and exposure. And I hope that you'll be our next success story. So if all podcasting and turning into a book did it for you was get you in front of your dream referral sources and prospects, would it be worth it? If all it did was get your book done without you having to write it, would it be worth it? If all it did was get you new customers, clients, and patients, would it be worth it? I got to believe your answer is yes. Now, the question is, can you do it? I'm going to oversimplify this. Can you dial a phone? Can you read? You're reading this right now. And can you edit a Word doc? I am hoping that all of those are true. Your answer to all of those is yes. In which case, you can have a podcast and you can turn it into a book. So I'm going to open it up for Q&A. Oh, wait, we got questions coming in. I didn't realize we already had questions. I'm sorry, I missed them. I apologize. Okay, how would this work if I am a pediatric dentist? Great question. So let's play. So you're a pediatric dentist. So in that case, you would want to book interviews with the, let's say, top 20 pediatricians in your area. So interview the pediatricians, and then have them on your show. And then you would give them links to the show when it aired, and saying, hey, put this on your Facebook, put this on your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your website. And then when the book comes out, you would send them a copy of the book and say, hey, the book's out. Congratulations. Here's a copy for you. If you'd like copies to hand out to your patients or prospective patients, I'd be happy to get them for you at our cost. In which case, it's, let's say, for $5 a book. In which case the pediatrician says, sure, give me 500 copies. And he starts handing them out to his patients. And some of those moms say, I didn't know there was such a thing as a pediatric dentist. I'm taking my kids there. We haven't been to our dentist in a while. My kids don't like the dentist. My kids are scared of the dentist. But if this guy seems like from his book that he's really different and really kid-friendly, I will take them there, and you will get a ton of new patients. And the beauty of the pediatricians is they're always getting new patients, so they've always got to keep buying more books and handing them out to more people. Does that answer your question? Yes, I'm speechless. That is absolutely brilliant. I can't take notes fast enough. I'm going to go do that right now. Awesome. All right. If you want us to do all the work for you, except the interview, it's got to be your voice on the air, obviously. But if you do want to talk to us about having us do it for you, we've got to make sure that we don't have a competing client in your market. So, for example, let's say I have a pediatric dentist in Buffalo, New York. I can't do another pediatric dentist. It wouldn't work. I can't have clients competing against each other. So if you go to podcastmarketingmagic.com/apply, we'll ask you like where you are, what business you're in, and then we'll let you know our software has all our Infusionsoft is programmed with all of our clients in it, and it will tell you, sorry, you're locked out, but we hope we inspired you to start a podcast and turn it into a book. Or it'll tell you, hey, we don't have anybody in your business in your area. Here's how we would work together to see if you're interested. So again, go to podcastmarketingmagic.com/apply to see if you qualify, if you want to have us do all the work for you. And if not, that's okay too. Like I said, no hard sell here. I just hope I've inspired you to do a podcast and turn it into a book and get a whole lot more referrals. Before we end early, are there any other questions? Okay, one more. No problem. Can you give us examples of other industries you've done this in? Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you saw we've done it in legal. We've done it in golf. We have done it in dentistry. We've done it in plastic surgery. We've done it in the author, speaker, coach, consultant space. We've done it in the get rich quick and real estate space. We've done it in financial services. We've done it in insurance. We've done it in tech. We've done it in fitness. We've done it in chiropractic. We've done it in human resources. The list goes on and on and on, but you get the idea. It's worked every single time we've done it. So I know it'll work for you. So thank you everyone for attending. I hope you got a lot out of this. The replay will be available for, I believe, 24 or 48 hours, so you can watch it again and take more notes if you want. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got a lot out of it, and I hope to see you at podcastmarketingmagic.com/apply. Thanks, everybody.